how to find and hire the best VAs for wholesaling real estate. What is up, guys? Zach in here.
Rick in here.
And in today's video live stream, we're going to break down exactly how to find the best VAs possible for wholesaling real estate, how to use them for calling, how to use them for texting, lead gen, buyers, all these things, where to find VAs, where to go out here and actually how do you pay them, right?
Yep.
And really everything you need to know about virtual assistants right now, and especially coming into 2025. It's sad that there's no good videos on this. And I looked at all the videos on YouTube for virtual assistants for wholesaling for the past year, and I don't think they're high quality. And so what we decided was to put in entire virtual wholesaling, virtual assistant course today. So you know exactly how to kind of deal with VAs, how to train them, and all these things. Now, the problem is, and I think one of the biggest issues I see with VAs in wholesaling real estate is a lot of you guys treat your VAs like robots. You find them on Upwork and you click done for cold calling, says, call this list.
Yeah.
And then you get upset that, they suck. And it's not them that's the problem, right? That's a bad analogy. I can always go out here and be like, it's like a dog sometimes, right? Sometimes the dog's not bad, it's the boss. And it's the same thing in wholesaling with employees. It's never really the employee for half the time. It's how you train them, right?
Yeah. So I'm probably one of the best examples of VAs. I've failed, fired, and screwed up the VA thing more times than I care to admit, because a lot of times, well, first of all, when I first did it, I didn't really have an education on it. We all like a VA is they think that what's going on inside the wholesaler's brain. And honestly, a lot of it's foreign. And a lot of you guys rely on, oh, you've worked with a wholesaler or an investor before, and we make certain assumptions, and this is where we get in trouble. So I always break it down to we don't communicate really well.
Mm-mm.
And then the worst thing is we blame the VA for failed results, and then you do it over and you do it over again. So the point of today's live stream is to show you how to get some accountability if you're going to hire a VA. Because guys, I tell you, they are not a magic wand to your wholesaling business. In fact, if you do it wrong, it'll actually be a nightmare in your business, and it's going to put you in this repetitive loop. I've been in it, but I'm an ADHD guy, and I've learned my lessons with it, and we want to share with you today.
Yeah, and it's been 2 years since we kind of did a full tutorial on VAs, and my philosophy towards VAs for the past 2 years since I made that video has completely changed. And the way that I train VAs, the way that I find them, and all these things have changed. So really what I want to do is just really get in the nitty gritty of this and break it down. So if you don't know what a VA is, a virtual assistant, this is basically somebody who's virtually going to assist you with certain tasks. So this could be cold caller, this could be a texting person, right? For most instances, probably why you're watching this video is for the cold calling aspect, right?
Yep.
Hey, can I get a VA to cold call for me or with me? Now, point is, and the question's okay, well, why do I want to get a VA? Well, why do I want to get a virtual assistant in wholesaling real estate? Well, the point is you buy back your time. And more specifically, you buy back your time for about $6 an hour on average, right? It'd be $3 an hour, it'd be $7, $8. But the entire point of this video is if you're able to get 15 hours a week back, can you be doing something that's worth more than $6 an hour if you're just so busy? For example, you could probably do cold calling on top of that, and you're making more than $6 an hour cold calling, right? If you really do the math, you're making way more money than that. And so the point is, when you start buying back time, you kind of have an army at your disposal. The best example I give of this is how many Zach Ins does it take to beat up prime Mike Tyson? Well, if I went in the box ring with prime Mike Tyson, I'd get destroyed. But what if I had 100 Zachs in the ring? I could probably beat up prime Mike Tyson, 100 of me. Not 99, but probably 100.
You would need at least a dozen.
Yeah, right. And so
5 are going to get killed instantly.
But the point is, it doesn't matter how good of a fighter you are. If I just have the amount of sheer people with average skills, it just destroys.
Armies will be
I don't care if you're the best army in the world, right? There's a sheer amount of numbers that you
Mhm.
need. And so the point is, if I have 5 VAs cold calling 8 hours a day, that is 40 hours of calling a day. Zach, in his best form, cannot do 40 hours of calling in a day. That is just impossible. There's only 24.
It's like the movie 300. I watched it again the other night.
Oh,
The
yeah.
best warriors in their time. I mean, the greatest warriors, but they can't overcome a third. What was it? It was 3, 5, 10,000 piece army, and at the end,
100,000, the Persians, yes.
yeah, they just couldn't, like, they were the best, and they slaughtered like 50%
But
of
you got to
them.
remember, because they had the pass there,
Yeah,
where there was 2
an
rocks
advantage. Yeah,
protection, they had the advantage.
Great movie,
What
man.
if you put them in a field, right? Like, come
Oh,
on,
it's
right?
over.
And so I'm talking about a field. I'm not talking about the you know, you got the gates, right, to protect you. But what I'm telling you is, you're buying back your time, and you just have an army to help you out, right? And that's basically the point of why it's successful. Now, a lot of people tell me, I used to have this rule like, hey, you should get 2 or 3 deals before you get a VA. My philosophy's kind of changed. The amount of people that have full-time jobs that, before they go invest 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 grand on the stupid other marketing things, it doesn't hurt maybe to drop $1,000 into doing this with calling if like you're super busy, right? Like I'm talking high income W-2 employees, you're making over 6 figures and you're just trying to get out of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys in like insurance sales or tech sales or medical sales like that. Like they're willing to drop $1,000 a month. Honestly, I can't really be opposed to it.
Yeah.
Right. And so one thing is I've really kind of revamped my entire philosophy around VAs. I used to be a guy that's Mr. Churn and Burn back in the day. And now I'm really into the human side of it. And it's just done wonders for me. And we're going to kind of explain exactly how we both do it. Philosophies are pretty much the same on it. But so let's kind of break down exactly how to do it. So first and foremost, how much do you pay a VA? I think this is the biggest like controversy I get in wholesaling, because everyone's like, $2 an hour. I have it for $1 an hour. I've heard that one.
I started at the lowest I ever paid a VA was $3 an hour. I'm not proud of it, but honestly, it was a healthy rate at the time. And now
that's like 4
inflation now. It's kind of like, but like, it's so funny about the controversy. I like how much you pay a VA. I think it's funny.
So the one thing about this is I'm going to call Rick in out, because I actually kind of went into your, I went in your side, when you had your VAs, and I'm like, this is why you suck at the VA thing.
Listen, I'm terrible.
You're terrible at it.
Honestly, I was terrible, guys.
And I'm like, what's going on? The accents are terrible. The communicate. I'm like, what's going on? And I'll be completely honest with you. You're going to the bottom of the barrel. $2-3 an hour.
The biggest complaint I had it was 2015 to 17 was I hear roosters crowing in the background.
Yep.
And I was like, man, this is the 3rd VA where I've had the exact same complaint. And I had no idea. And the only reason I found out is because I was recording the calls and I had to go in and dig. I got busy and I just assumed everything was like kosher because I was still getting deals and get it done. But like, it was bad. They're like, I can't believe you'd represent your, and they were right. And sometimes you have to listen to your customers to fix problems. And this is what happens when you don't pay attention or get a very low end VA. But honestly, I didn't really know what I was doing with VAs. And I tried to take everyone's advice and I got frustrated. And so one of my advices I always gave to people is, always try it. Always do the best you can to try it if you have the time. So listen, if you're broke and you're hustling, you outsourcing VAs to do your cold calling, put your time in first, get a deal or 2, get some money, then do it. Because here's a problem. It's still my philosophy, but I get it. I mean, we have to adapt and change in time is if you don't know anything about it and you've never made a cold call, which was my experience way back then, either you don't do it or you outsourcing someone. Most of the time, these VAs, I might tell you, they're sharp. I found one of my VAs had 35 total wholesalers they're working for. And I thought I was like killing her at $3 an hour. And vice versa, I look around. This is why she couldn't return calls, answer calls live, because I didn't ask any questions. And so we just learn and adapt. I am not the best example of VA. He's a lot better at it than I am. But I'm full ADHD. I assume they know everything going on in my head. And always give the analogy of somebody walk me through an exercise, give me instructions on how to build a peanut butter jelly sandwich. I'm like, how hard can it be? Slap a little jelly, slap. Now, if someone's never built one before, you have to give them step-by-step instruction. And it was a real eye-opening experience.
You used to explain it a lot. We kind of stopped talking.
Yeah,
about
so
it,
it's we all assume everybody knows how to build a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Most people in the United States, they get it. And by the way, the peanut butter ain't really peanut butter; it's full of crap. But if you try to explain it to someone in a foreign country, most of them never even heard of a peanut butter jelly sandwich. What type of bread do I use? How much peanut butter do I do it? How much jelly? Where do I get the peanut butter from? Where do I get the jelly from? Which one's refrigerated? Which one's not? Do I blend them together? Do I squash it? Do I cut it? And honestly, if you go through, somebody walking through the exercise, it was mind altering to me. I think it was 47 steps total. And you know what I said? Here's what I do. Ready, Rick? Make me a peanut butter jelly sandwich. That's what I tell the VA. And I was stunned when I didn't get the results. I would get upset. I would fire him. I would do something. And the thing is, after a while, if you have the same results and the same outcome, maybe it's me and not the VA. And the truth of the matter is, most of the times we fail our VAs. Don't get me wrong. There's some VAs that will take advantage of us, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But think about it. A simple exercise by building a peanut butter and jelly, if it's 47 steps, like, how do I explain this to VA? It almost feels like overwhelming. And I think that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah. So on top of that too, with you, it's like, well, why is that VA getting $3 an hour? First, they have a pretty bad accent, right? And number two, they live where there's roosters every morning, right? That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
And so the ones that don't have the roosters can afford to do $4 or $5 an hour. The ones with really good accents that aren't too bad, they're going out here and they're getting $6, $7 an hour.
Yeah.
And I found out the sweet spot, because I've tried the $3, $4, $5, $6, $7. Heck, I paid a VA $12 an hour once. And I found that the sweet spot's about $6 an hour. That is roughly where we're at. You got something right there. There you go. All right. So about $6 an hour is where you get the good ones. And at $6 an hour is when you start getting this magic thing with VAs called C2 Advanced Mastery English Proficiency. And I know it's a really advanced thing. Let me pop it up. It's called C2 Advanced Mastery English Proficiency. And this is where VAs can understand idioms. They can understand metaphors. They can understand pretty good tasks. And I mean, you've hopped on this week on some of my morning meetings with VAs, right? From what you're used to now, it's just you have no problem. Here's talking about the Miami Dolphins game to one of the VAs. He loves football.
American football, Mike.
And that's another thing about this. All my VAs that I've trained to know that are in my company, I know everything about them.
Yeah.
I know everything about them. And the funny part about it is I know his favorite football team. I know all these things. And the funny thing is, it took me a long time to figure out, but about $6 to $7 an hour is roughly where you want to be at, right? And so this is kind of where I have found the perfect blend, because at $9 an hour with two VAs, that's 18. It's better to have 3 6 than 2 9s, right? And so that is kind of the sweet spot I have found. So that's how much you should be paying your VAs. Now, I know you want to do $3 an hour. I'm just telling you, there's buying back your time and then not buying it back. So it's like getting a really, really, really bad pair of shoes that's going to break in two weeks. It's actually cheaper sometimes to get the Converse or the Vans that are $40, high quality for $40, right? But don't get the crazy Nikes that are $150 Jordans that were built in the same factory at the $30.
You just don't want to buy it twice and be disappointed.
Yeah. And
what's that site out there that? Kind of like the knockoff of Amazon, even though Amazon, a lot of time you got to buy it twice.
AliExpress. Oh, Shein. Temu.
Temu?
Yeah, Temu.
I mean, the price is very attractive. I feel like it's the old school VA, but everyone gets disappointed with the delays and shipping. And, sometimes it's
the same factory though.
It's crazy.
There's a couple of those the Nike factory.
I've never tried it out.
But I'm telling you, $6, $7 an hour, that's where you want to be at. So roughly it's okay, where do I find these VAs at? Zach, where do you find your VAs, right? And I'll be honest, I've scoured the world. I've tried them out. And I've been on kicks, right? So of course it's kind of funny, but like with a lot of things in life, kind of you start with a passion of something, and then you kind of move over to other things, and you come back to that original thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I was seeing a lot of these like real estate influencers, like especially the wholesaling ones. And you're going to find this with them is like they start out wholesaling. That's where they make the most money.
Yep.
And they get into flipping, they get into creative, they get into on market, then they get into Amazon, then they get into day trading. And then eventually they get broke doing that stuff because honestly, that stuff ain't good compared to wholesale. And then they all come back to. And so the thing is, it always comes back to the original thing. And the thing with me is I've always started with the Philippines. And that's where everyone says, right? And I basically went there, and then I'm like, wait, Egypt's amazing. I love the Egyptian cold callers. And then we kind of went to South America because I'm like, Florida, right? That worked really well. And then it just kind of came back to the Philippines. And the amount of advanced mastery, English proficiency, like people for $5, $6 an hour is all in the Philippines. But because it's the cheapest cost of living there. And so number one, Philippines, that country by far, the best one for virtual assistants. And they just gotta basically work the night shift. So I'm talking about New York Standard Time, right? So it's going to be a 13-hour time difference. Yeah. So if it currently right now, it would be at 2 a.m. So night shift's probably going to be 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And that's basically night shift for them. And it's not bad, right? One secret I could tell you is a lot of VAs, let's just use guys, for example. A lot of them, they're ladies' men, right? So they got their girlfriends, their wives, and the best ones I have found, their girlfriends are also VAs, and so they both do night shifts together. Mm-hmm. Very, very hard to do. And I mean, I ain't gonna explain to you guys the night shift, but like a lot of night shifts, if your spouse or your partner's a night shift person, it makes life way easier, right? And that is where I found the most longevity, the happier, things like that. And so the Philippines, number one, by far, one of my favorite places. I just communicate a lot better. I feel like the Philippines has very, very good family culture there. I like having VAs that have relationships, dogs, kids, things like that. We're like regular employees.
Dogs
right?
are really big in the Philippines.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I asked one of my VAs.
Big dogs.
Oh, tell me about your dog. I was like, oh, it's an English Mastiff, and he just went the whole thing about dogs. It's just kind of funny, but like, guys, doing a little stuff like, for example, like for Christmas, like if they have a dog, it literally costs you $3. This costs you $3 to change their entire life. Send them a Temu dog toy. I send it to their house if you have their address. $3, ship it from AliExpress to their house
from China.
But like it's Philippines, they'll get there in a week.
I know.
And like, hey, here's a Christmas gift. Like I'm telling you, that little stuff, that's how you treat them like human. And that's what I do about my regular employees, right? Mm-hmm. But one thing I will tell you is the Philippines is number one. Number two is Egypt. I love Egypt. They're a little more expensive. And when it comes to accents, they have Arabic accents. They speak Arabic there. I don't know why. I might get in some flack from saying this. But from all the accents I've ever heard in my entire life, the one where the average American, if you ask them what accent is that, they have no idea. Like, unless it's like a really bad one, obviously, but like, if it's like kind of like they learned English when they were like 20 years old, right? And they're 30, or they've been only learning English for 5 or 6 years, it doesn't like hit you. You can kind of hear it, but you can't tell.
Yeah.
That one, his Arabic accent by far, bar none. I was talking to a guy, he's from Saudi Arabia. I had no idea where he was from. Like he could have been like anywhere, right? I just couldn't tell by the accent, right? And I can tell you Egyptian accents, if they're okay, you can't really tell.
Yeah.
Unfortunately with Filipino, like you can tell. And you can tell with Spanish too, obviously. But Spanish doesn't really affect people too much. But Egyptian cold callers, time zone's a lot better. Egyptians are really, really smart people. They're really, really, what I found is they're very faith oriented, and they're very, very big into families, things like that, right? Egypt is a massive country, by the way, like massive country.
Big.
So Egypt is a great place. I mean, let me see the Egypt's population is like insane, actually. 112 million. That's a third of the United States.
Yep.
It's insane. Bigger than California. Massive place.
There's a whole world outside the United States.
Oh yeah. So Egypt is absolutely amazing. And then number 3, South America, the best point of South America is their time zone's basically the same as the United States.
That's the perfect part.
And if you're in a Spanish speaking place
Like we are.
in Florida, Texas, Arizona, right? So Southern California, right? That works pretty well. The cool part is if you're in the area like South, I mean, Georgia, you don't really get that too much, but you do get some big Hispanic populations in like Atlanta. But like when you have a Spanish accent what I found in the United States, and maybe because I love everyone, but like nobody cares. Like not one person even bats an eye anymore, especially like nobody cares.
It's the norm.
It's not the norm, but like it's just normal, right? Like it's normal. If somebody has like I don't know, like a Japanese accent, right? It kind of hits you like, oh, where are you from? Like then they're like all like want to know about.
Yeah.
Spanish accent, like, okay, we don't care, like you'd be from anywhere.
I don't even ask.
And it's just so normal, right? And so the thing is, South America by far is going to be the easiest accent if it's not the best, right? So that's honestly what I'll tell you. Now, which one I'm telling everyone to watch, I would probably just go to the Philippines, number one. The reason why I'm telling everyone the Philippines is you're just going to get the best English and the best communication. If you're a guy like me that only knows English. Now, I have a hobby of studying languages and I'm decent in the places I've traveled, but I'm nowhere near talking level, right? That was made very apparent in the Netherlands and in France. So it was pretty bad. We have stories about that, but I tried my best. But basically, I can tell you the Philippines by far best place you're in. So what you're going to do is, I'm going to tell everyone, go to OnlineJobs.ph. Far and none the best place for VAs. The reason why I say that over Fiverr and Upwork is they train off of IQ, DISC score, and English testing. They have by far probably my favorite English testing, and I absolutely love their English testing system on there. And it's pretty dang good, and you're really not going to get screwed. The cool part about OnlineJobs.ph, and this is the part that kind of sucks, is there's a lot of people, like a lot of VAs applying on there. And your job in there is going to be going out here and probably doing 15, 20, 30 interviews. I know that kind of sucks. They could be 15 minutes, 20 minutes. But what we're going to do is just test out why they don't have a job. Like, why don't you have a job right now?
Yeah.
What are your hours? How are you so good at your English, right? And like you kind of go through the entire process with them. And you're going to figure out which ones you should be putting on and which ones you should not. Again, make it a requirement to have C2 Advanced Mastery English Proficiency. I know I'm saying that like a crazy guy, but I'm just telling you from my future life experience, that is going to help you out the most. Now, for the love of everything, I'm going to make this a very clear rule. Do not hire VAs that DM you, that reach out to you, no.
Nope.
No. You do not want to be doing that, okay? The best restaurants in the United States of America, like the best food, or like you guys like ever know, like every big city has like, oh, you know what? Vito's Pizza. Vito's Pizza ain't doing no advertising. It's the best pizza in town.
That's good.
And everyone goes there, right? And the thing is, what I found with VAs are if they're reaching out to you, it's because no one wants to hire them, or like they just keep losing jobs and they have to do marketing. They would have to do marketing to get you. And those people are not like my VAs. I see a lot of people like they bring their VAs on. My VAs are locked because I know for a fact every wholesaler will go offer my VAs $8, $9, $10 an hour because they're trained by me. They're amazing and they have the best systems possible. But my VAs know if typhoon hits them, something bad happens, their dog's sick, right? I'm there. They're good. They're protected, right? And they don't have to worry about me like ever firing them because the company only grows. So just be very careful if VAs reaching out to you. I know a lot of people get that a lot. On top of that too, and I'm going to do a lot of question and answers today too about this, is do not hire VA services. This is another really big thing to tell everyone. Let me make it okay. Do not hire a VA service. Do not hire a VA service. And we can go on the whole like breakdown of this, okay? But do not hire a VA service. The reason is what they do is they get a VA for $3 an hour. They put their $2 into it. There's about $1 of administrative costs.
Yep.
Right. And they make their $2 an hour and they just kind of make a profit and they charge you $6. The problem is you do not get that C2 English proficiency. They're not trained with your systems. They're using guru scripts. Just not a good thing if possible. And the one thing I will tell you about VA services is they churn and burn VAs like crazy.
Yeah.
And they do not treat them like people. They treat them like robots. And they just don't have that connection with them. And there's no loyalty. And they're not employees. I've been talking about this forever. But like, if you treat your acquisitions guy like an entrepreneur, you pay him $10.99, which we've done a lot of rehabbing together on this.
Mm-hmm.
They're more loyal. And they are way more vested into you, and they're always going to do better for you. And eventually you don't have to train them because you don't have to retrain them, right? So do not hire VA service. It's one of the worst decisions you can make, right?
Yeah. Here's the reality is it sounds so good. And by the way, I've tried a lot of them, not every one of them. And like, no, we'll handle everything for you. We've pre-vetted them. We've trained them. They've worked with wholesalers. They know how to look for motivated sellers. Understand, if the pitch sounds too good, it's probably too good. The reality is, regardless of who owns the VA service, like some other wholesalers do it to offset their cost, it's great in theory, but they never wind up working, because if it's such a good service, why do they have to market it so hard? And it's a big turn and burn from the VAs and from wholesalers just like you and me. Guys, if it sounds too good to be true, some people are really good at marketing. And sometimes you got to look through the marketing, or like, are you actually solving a problem? Or like, a good marketer finds a problem and goes, hey, if I could do this, this, and this, and I could sell it. Well, if they deliver on it, it would solve it. Guys, if I thought I could hire a VA service or even create one for you, the amount of energy and time, I would lose my butt. It's just the incredible amount of time and energy you have to do training them, retaining them, and keeping them happy is hard. And then getting them to commit to your company and your company only, that's a job in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And some people do this on the side. They have full companies. I find the pitch is almost too perfect. And the problem is you will never know what their retention rate, because that's the really sign if it's effective or not. But like, we fall in the trap. They're like, man, if I could just get a company to handle all this and outsource it. And that's where a lot of you go wrong. I've gone wrong there. And just be advised, if it sounds too good to be true, ask yourself, how can they do all this with like nothing from me? And it usually you wind up in a worse hole than when you started.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you really want to avoid. Guys, if we thought there was a service that is one and done and solve it, first we would be using it, we would test it out, and then we would show it to you guys. But as of now, I really haven't found one. And
we've gone through it like, okay, well, like why don't we make a, VA service? Because we're pretty good at VAs now.
yeah,
It's like, I mean, the numbers even make a good profit. And it's like, well, do I really want to be doing this? And can I the only one that ever made sense was like a software company, but the problem is that the VA thing ain't it. And there's no good loyalty with services. So I'm just telling you guys, like, I say my mind, I tell you exactly how I feel, and I just give you the honest truth. There's not anyone that's just going to tell you straight up and give you the information for free. They're all behind paywalls, gurus. We can talk about that all day, but like, the thing is, when I say the truth, a lot of people get mad, and I'm probably going to get flack from all the VA services. They're going to try to discredit me. I had another buyer dispositions employee attack, whenever there's competition, whenever I say, hey, don't use this service, everyone gets mad at me. And one thing I will tell you is when somebody tells you about something, right? For example, I had somebody, they made a crazy post. They're like, Zach is a scam. He's terrible. He has a paid community. He's actually a real guru. And I'm like, okay, someone just called me a guru. That's insane. But like that's crazy work, by the way. But then I looked up the dude. Mm-hmm. He's a guy I actually know. And he's the affiliate manager to a ex-Leads competitor. And I'm like, oh, like, does this person have an incentive to be mean to me or not? Right. And that's always the thing. And so the thing is, what I mean by this is there's going to be a comment below this saying, no, VA services are amazing. They're the best. I want you to go look at the person and say, do they have a VA service? whenever somebody tells me that PPC and SEO is the greatest thing in the world, Zach, you're wrong, you're terrible. And then they just like, they say their guru talking points, whatever. I'm like, okay, is this person being actually objective?
Yeah.
Or do they have a PPC or SEO course?
Listen, they're gonna have a biased opinion.
Now,
by
I will
human
tell you
nature.
this. I'll tell you this. There's
Yes.
only one man that has a PPC agency that I know that does not agree with my views, but he says, honestly, I get your point. And his name's Tim. He's a cool guy, but like,
He does great videos.
but like, he's got great videos. He's a cool YouTuber, but like, he doesn't like, he gets it. He doesn't attack me.
Yeah, he's almost running on like everybody.
But one thing I will tell you is like, he has an incentive to tear me down, but he's like, honestly, you make a good point, and I understand where your side, but my results are different. I'm like, and I told him like, what if I brought 5,000 people? He's like, oh yeah, they probably wouldn't be as good in that market. I'm like, okay, but like, that's why he's like more boutique on his thing. But like, one thing I will tell you is, do not hire VA service. And when you have somebody attacking me in the comments saying VA service is the best, blah, 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 are you selling a VA service? Yes or no? So for example, I'm going to say this, and this is really going to stir the pot. But honestly, if these people want to follow me, I can deal with it, right? First, says your mic's not working. Can you talk in the mic really quick?
Can you guys hear me?
Say hello.
It's hello. It's a little bit low.
Hello, hello. All right,
Fix
let me figure it.
I'll fix it.
All right, fix it while you're doing it. Okay. Vegans. Okay. If I go say being a vegan is stupid, I don't know any vegans benching 315. Guess who is going? Oh, they say they can hear you. They say they can hear. What do you think is going to happen in the comments? The only people saying no, being vegan is awesome and great, are just vegans. And so when I make fun of gurus, the only people attacking me are gurus or people that are paid into the guru program. And so one thing I will tell you is just really understand the chessboard that is beholden on you. That in wholesaling real estate, when I say something bad about the VA services, the person that are saying, no, Zach doesn't know what he's talking about. It's the person that sells the VA service. And as a guy that has like no incentive, I don't have any affiliates for VAs. I got no incentive to go good, bad, or anything like that. Just don't use it. That is just my dang opinion on this. Okay.
The truth of the matter is, we never expect a guru to endorse us for obvious reasons. And if we understand that, just look at it. So it is what it is, par for the course. Like, if anything, it reaffirms what we talk about. Exactly.
So how do you train VAs? So now you can't use a VA service. You actually got to train them, which at the end is going to be best.
Man.
But like, actually, at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you how I actually don't even train VAs anymore. But let me give you my secrets, because this has really changed the past year, right? I used to be like, I train them all iron grip dictator type guy, and really I've been a lot more laid back and doing it. So one thing about VAs, which I do, which it's a little different from you, but like we've learned, right? We've done a lot of testing, right? And so this is another part, like when I kind of got in the business with you, when I was wholesaling by myself, you were wholesaling, we kind of went together. Mm-hmm. You helped my process, I helped your processes. I kind of did more of the tech stuff. We blew everything up because like one example for you is like you had your VAs on like the time testing graph and like making sure you're screenshotting their, that like it was.
I could tell you a little secret about screenshotting.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't work.
It don't work.
They got another computer right next to them.
Oh
like,
yeah.
I found that out the hard way by accident. I'm like, I thought it was brilliant. So I've done the time clock, the screen capture.
It's so stupid. And so one thing I will tell you is
virtual.
Even VAs, like I was training a VA 2 weeks ago, and it was funny. And they're like, oh, okay, systems, SOPs, they do that, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, well, what screen capture software to use? I said, we don't use one. It's like, what do you mean? I say, we expect results. We don't expect you to be on the screen. Like, you got to go pee, you got to go pee, right? You got to go eat some food, go eat some food. I could care less. Scratch the dog, pet the dog, right? But as long as the work is done, that's all that matters. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm just used to being micromanaged all the time. Like, no, like, here's the thing though. We're an amazing company. We're one of the best companies to work for in the real estate industry, especially in the wholesaling side. The only thing I do ask you is just do the work, and I will know if you don't do it. At the end of the day, that is it. And every VA, it's the same one. They're like, oh, what do you mean? And it's a lot of freedom. And what I found with freedom is sometimes you give someone too much freedom, they go nuts. You give them enough freedom, they are insanely great. And so what I could tell you with VAs is like, that's the first part I do is training. Like I unprogram their mind of time, money. It's just results. I don't even call it, I don't call it $6 an hour. I call it, it's basically the math of it, right? So like on all my SOPs, systems and operations, all that stuff, it's not $6 an hour, right? It's basically, it's a 12,400, wait, $6 an hour, 40 hours times 52. So $12,480 salary. And that's what I tell them. It's a salary. It's not per hour, right? And they're like, wait, what? It's a salary? I'm like, it's a salary. Now, really, it's per hour, but it's a salary. The mindset changes on that, right? They're not paid per hour. They're paid on the results because it's a salary. And it really changes things.
Yeah, it's a commitment. So if you expect a commitment from them, how are you going to get them to commit to you? If all people do is hear $6 an hour, you're only as good as your next.
Yeah, keep talking.
You're only as good as your next hour. And so just like being a wholesaler, although we technically don't get paid per hour, you're going to have to make a commitment in wholesaling. And when we deal with VAs, a lot of times, if you got to get a commitment, and if you're just, so here's what most wholesalers did. I'm giving you my DNA on how I managed VAs. I micromanaged them like crazy in the first 45 to 60 days, and then I undermanaged them. And if you understand that, that micromanage them kills any type of commitment they have to get results, because they're so worried about their next meeting with you that if you don't hit the KPIs, you're going to fire them.
Is the mic working for you?
I think it is. Check.
Okay, cool. All right. If not, I mean, we can figure it out. I think we can just get a new cord or whatever. Okay, but basically, you got to train them the right way. Okay, Rick, sounds good. Awesome. Okay. You have to treat VAs like actual people. And I know it sounds creepy, but like just say it's a salary, completely big mindset shift with them. And they will want to do more work and better, especially if you're loyal. You trade loyalty for loyalty, you get it back. Mm-hmm. You give respect, you get it back. So on top of this too, like actually know what you're doing. Like do not be the guy that's never made a cold call trying to hire a cold caller. It's brutal.
That's me.
It's you. That's what you did, right?
And here's the truth of the matter is some of you guys just get started, you get a deal or two, and then you hire a cold call and you're like, crap, I've spent, $1,500 and I don't have a result. Do you really think if it took you 6 months to a year to even get like your first deal or get traction, and you give one of the most important sources of outbound or inbound leads, whichever you're doing, and you expect a miracle overnight? That's how I thought. And honestly, you're like, well, if I don't get something, I'm going to go broke. And you put that pressure. Dude, they feel your stress. So when we talk about people like they're micromanaged, now it's much easier to say when you have more funds and you have more time, but you have to act as if, because if you, that constant stress, if I don't get a deal by Friday, I have to fire you. They're not going to commit to you. They're just going to assume you're going to fire them. So
they're already out the door. They're one foot out the door there.
So most of you over micromanage them, and then you undermanage them. And this, if you do this, it is a repetitive cycle. When we bring anybody in our company, we know the bare minimum, it's a 90-day investment. Meaning I'm not really going to see the fruits of the profit for 90 days. If I tell you that in wholesaling, it's not working.
I don't know. They said you just talk in this mic, see if that helps.
If I lost my train of thought, it's the reality is it just takes time. So if I tell you in direct mail, it takes 90 days to really get your first contract and get into a flow. Why would you think a VA would like have, most of you guys expect to hire a VA and just hit it out of the park in the first 30 days. I know I did. And I'm telling you, you're going to be wildly disappointed. The best VAs I dealt with were 90 days plus, 6 months. And after a year, they were phenomenal. And I'm just telling you, think about what you did in wholesaling in the beginning. You sucked. Like I know I did. I know Zach wasn't the greatest. We all start somewhere. So a VA is, and just whatever experience you think the VA has, don't take it for granted. Make them prove it. So if they say, oh, I've worked with hundreds of wholesalers, that to me sounds like you failed. So now I'll be the first to admit most wholesalers fail VAs, but if you understand that, we can go from there. You can put it in the middle.
I agree. So we'll figure that. Let's see.
You tell us live.
Yeah, here, put that mic there. Just unplug it. Put it. We'll just share it for the rest of this. I just need it. Either we gotta get a new mic or whatever. No big deal. Okay.
Probably dropped it.
Oh yeah. So one thing I can tell everyone is just actually know what you're doing. Actually, at least get through it just a little bit. I promise you this. If you just get through it and you kind of understand at least what you're doing, I promise you, like it will be way better. Just even understanding it to a point. Now, the way that I train VAs is I do at least minimum, 7 days. If I'm going to personally train them, I give them 7 days. You're like, whoa, that's way too much. It's way too much. It's not. It really is not. And training a VA for 7 days, like that's all they need. And that's what you record them, you work with them. And so kind of how you train them right is you give them an SOP, a systematic, just basically breakdown of the entire standard operating procedures of the company. If you do not have one, have one. One example I give to everyone, and like, it's too advanced for me. Write down on Google Docs your entire process for cold calling. Just write like painfully. Okay, did that. Perfect. Put in ChatGPT and say, turn this into an SOP. And it's going to at least help you out, give you a framework, and then you kind of fill it out from there. And then give that out to the virtual assistant. From there, they're going to shadow you cold calling. They're going to shadow you doing everything you're doing for the day. They're going to copy your techniques. They're going to get their scripts that you're going to grade. You're going to do role play. Like this is 7 days. Like this is a lot. But you only do it once. Let me explain why. What I do a lot now is I use my VAs for training. For example, if I have a list pulling probate VA and I'm looking to get another one, I don't personally train the guy for 40 hours. That's not worth my time. What I do instead is my VA, who has already been doing it for years, I'm probably going to pay them an extra $1 an hour for 2 weeks or an extra $2 an hour for the week. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have that person on a Zoom with them and they're going to just train together. Yeah. But they're going to do a separate market. So the guy knows he's not like stealing his job or whatever. And this is a hack to have the VAs do the training with you. And then you spend like a day with that VA just to make sure it's all good. It's a crazy hack.
Yeah, everybody hires a VA and thinks you assume they know everything. You don't let them in your head. You don't give them a SOP, a standard operating procedure, which by the way, AI has just changed the world. Do you know to write a standard operating procedure? When I did it, it took me like a month just to write one marketing technique because you had to write it all out or type it like in a Word document. And it's unbelievable what you can do with ChatGPT, any of them you use. Oh, yeah. So like the excuse is kind of gone. You can get this done. Like honestly, from start to finish, you can get it done in a week. Why do I say a week? Because you should take time. Remember, the AI just helps you build a framework and then you work on details. Here's a little secret I've done with operating procedures because ADHD kicks into me. It's not easy. He can do it in a heartbeat. So somebody taught me, I gave it to him. They go, dude, it looks like a Bible. There's nobody's going to read all that, Rick. I'm like, he goes, can you take this back and give me 20% of the most important information? I'm like, and all of a sudden it was like getting the Cliff Note version. Now there's details you have to have in there, but like, I'm really like, we tend to write down like just fluffy stuff and it does not translate well, especially when communicating others and a foreigner in another country. So take your peanut butter and jelly example for an SOP and now take the 20% of the critical data where the sandwich is going to fail if you don't do this stuff. Because if they get that concept, you can fill in gaps with more advanced training. But like sometimes like simple, like you have to answer the phone within the third ring. The most critical part of inbound leads, in my opinion. Because if you leave up an option, what's a failed call if you don't answer it? Well, if you're on the other line, that's an acceptable failed call, and we've built in a variance for it. So take your entire thing. Like most of us, either we under-explain or we over-explain. Identify which one you're in. Like I under-explain verbal and I over-explain in writing. I don't know why. It's just, I'm just wired that way. So, but with AI, it's like Chat GPT, Bard, Gemini, all this stuff. I mean, he shows me stuff and my mouth just opens. I'm old. I get it. But I'm like, I just spent 2 hours and you did it in 2 minutes. And we always have to be learning. And I'm constantly educating myself. And as soon as you think you know it all, you're done. So just, it's never been an easier time to document your process. It was very laborious. You had to hire people. It was expensive. You all have the exact power to do it. So
yeah. And so that's one thing I do is a lot. I use my VAs actually for the training, and I promise you, it's been a massive, massive benefit for me. And you train a couple of VAs really hard. You make sure they're good, and then they'll train them, and then they kind of get most of it.
yeah.
And then boom, you get in there, and then you help train too. And just it's one of the best hacks I've ever done, and it makes everyone happy. And it costs what, $40 to train that person versus me. So it's very, very good, and it keeps it in house, right? Like it keeps everything in house, my processes, my systems. On top of the two, I give my VAs when they first start 15 to 20 hours of videos. Now, a lot of people might want to know, like, Zach, like, how do you have some video skills when I was starting out when I was like 18, 19 on YouTube? And the reason was because I had a lot of skills. I actually made videos before my YouTube channel for VAs.
Mm-hmm.
And also we do very high quality videos for VAs now, but like we have like a whole library, like a whole secret YouTube channel, like unlisted videos. And we just, it's like how can we teach you? We teach the VAs the same thing. And that's how we do it, right? On top of that too, it's like you can record yourself, boom, zoom it up, and then do it from that. Like it's
never been easier. It's never been easier right now with the technologies. It's like you can screen share, do a video, anything like that. And it's like before we had to have really complicated stuff, Camtasia, and like you had like an Adobe thing. Like, I mean, you can do this stuff like right from your phone now, like just shoot. And I tell people all the time, like, get out of your own way and don't complicate it. It's never been easier. As much as some technology I don't like, a lot of this technology will help you when it comes to processing a VA for your wholesaling business.
Oh yeah. So use your VAs. I'm telling you, for the training, it's great. Again, let me reiterate this. Treat your VAs like robots. Don't stop treating your VAs like robots. Treat them like people, because they really are. For example, right, next week we got Christmas, 24th, 25th, right? Mm-hmm. My VAs are off, but I'm paying them during those days. Yeah. Like I'm giving them full pay 24th, 25th. Is it because, I'm the greedy business? No, it's like, it's just a nice thing to do.
And recognizing their culture goes a long way.
And birthdays.
Like I've had employees from India. They've had some like really cool cultural stuff. I mean, they shut the whole place down for like 2 or 3 days.
Oh yeah.
And they celebrate. I forget the name. It doesn't come to me. I'm sure someone will put the comment on there. But if you respect it, you reward them and let them celebrate, just like kind of like we do in the United States.
Wally?
I know. I mean, it's just like if you ask them to work on that day, they will quit on you. And I love people who are going to make like family their top priority. And if you understand that, if you go, no, you got to work, you're my robot, you're not going to get far. So there's some common celebrations, like Christmas and stuff like that across the entire world, but just recognize it, get to know them, like, because it's like anybody, they're people, they're not robots.
Yeah. So just, I'm telling you, do that. You got to remember this too. Okay. This is really, really big, but like when you have a VA, especially when you're starting out, like you said, again, act like they don't know anything and just make them like a mini you and just have them do the task that you do. I know it's kind of, it's not like, oh, you do this. No, like, hey, you should be doing what I'm doing right here. And that should be the KPI or the goal here, right? So what are the jobs for VAs, right? So what I think is these are the separations. A VA shouldn't be doing everything. Oh, a marketing. When people tell me they have a marketing VA, I'm like, what are you talking about? You got to get specific, right? You got to train them, right? So there is cold calling VAs that specifically go out here and cold call. There are SMS text blasting VAs that text blast. There are inbound leads that will answer the inbound calls, qualify the seller, things like that. Then you kind of have the acquisition side, the lead follow-up, the junior acquisitions role, roughly whatever that is. And then you have dispositions marketing, or just going out here trying to find buyers, right? Those are what they are. On top of the two, I would tell everyone, give KPIs and tasks for the VA and track them, right? And so one thing, I don't pay them per hour per se, right? It's a salary, but like, hey, you got to make at least hopefully certain amount of calls, right? So if you could figure out if a VA is making 60 calls an hour, you multiply that by 8, that's 480. You want to do at least 400 calls for the day. And then you want, hey, I don't know, you can do like 75 contacts, 80 contacts for the day, right? And then roughly you see if you got leads doing there, all the tracking from there. What I'll tell you is the best phone system for them, if you're like kind of on the low end, like, all right, is going to be using Zoom and a dialer. Like the best type of system for phones. So Zoom actually has their own phone system, which works really good in the Philippines. It's a really good like click to dial acquisitions, dispositions, like type thing. And then adding in like a massive dialer out there. Like, I mean, you can use any triple line wave dialer. Ninja mode's pretty good now. You can use Bash dialers really good. ZachDialer.com, Mojo's good. Like there's a lot of good dialers out there. But doing that in Zoom and using Zoom, I use Zoom for pretty much everything there. Zoom's probably my favorite VA training type thing on there. So Zoom's really good. Every VA knows how to use Zoom, and Zoom doesn't really care what country you're in. So that works good. On top of the two is I love to do daily meetings with virtual assistants. Now, it really depends on the time. So I like to do 9 a.m. and I like to get my acquisitions guys at like 8 a.m. because they're hitting appointments pretty early. Virtual people, you can do later or early, whatever one you want. But like I usually get my daily meetings 9 to 10 a.m. in the morning, and just kind of like, hey, go over the day, where are the problems, what's it going with you? Let's track your KPIs, how's life, stuff like that. I mean, just generally just getting at least a 15, 20 minute in the morning. It's a great thing to do, and it kind of keeps you on track. It drives me crazy when people have VAs and they just like, work, I'll see you in a month. And then it's kind of like, you gotta like, I've tried the whole, we'll do it once a week. I've done the, we'll try it once a month. And I hate to say it's like every day, even if 15 minutes for the day, but you can have all the VAs together on a Zoom, right?
Yeah, it sounds painful, but if you want to get a result, like try the once a week or once a month. You're just going to keep turning and burning. And honestly, if you're going to do that, you're just better off doing it yourself. So if you want to commit to a VA, a lot of people just assume the training is like a given, or, hey, I'm going to give you so-and-so's manual or training video. Listen, everybody's different how they do wholesaling. Like whatever gets you the results legally, then do it. But like this part, it's a tough pill to swallow. I could not swallow this pill. My attention span couldn't handle it. So if you don't, either get some help or understand before you hire a VA, if you skip this section, you're most likely going to get dismal results. Because if you don't pay attention to them, they're going to pay attention to people that actually help them. Listen, everybody wants to accomplish something. Do you know like the number one thing that people want in the workforce? This is worldwide, just not in the United States. Money is important, don't get me wrong, but they want praise. They say praise is almost equal to money. And how do you do praise? Praise has to be with time, attention, and teaching them a skill set. Because if you teach them, they're going to last longer as an employee. They're going to be happier, and you're going to be happier because you're going to get results. I skipped this phase. We all try to train in 2 or 3 days, and then we expect a lifetime of results. Daily, it's painful. But like, how many of you have kids? It's like a daily training. You know what? It's just always, it never stops. So if it's good for our families, it's good for our companies, it's got to be good for a VA too. Sometimes we think of VAs, it's like something you order on Amazon. At least that's how I used to treat it. And I didn't make it work. So I'm like, just take the advice, because he helped me out a lot with this. Because I can't deal with VAs. They work a little bit and then they always fall apart. He goes like, when you talk to them, I go, I don't know. They just send me the emails and I get like some texting and stuff like that. So learn from my failures, learn from the successes we have. I'm not the best VA trainer. I know that. That's why he's in my company. But time, like I recognize now, I didn't spend time with him. And if time is one of the biggest recognition to make people successful, why do you think it'd be any different than a VA?
I'm telling you, it's a big change, right? And I remember when like we started work together, I was like 19, right? Like that sorry, 18, 19-ish, like everything blew up like crazy, right? We started making so much money because we just got the systems in place, right? And getting on top of everything's good. Remember, bonus them, pay your VAs, give them paid holidays. Like, it's really important. And most importantly, get to know your VAs. This is really important. Like, get to know them. Like, birthdays, girlfriends, boyfriends, dogs, sports, whatever. Just, like, if you got hired an office, like, you know about them, right? Don't treat them just like robots, right? Very, very important. On top of that, too, how do you pay them? I'm pretty big on paying on PayPal. By far, it's the easiest one. Payoneer is a pain in my butt. All these other like service, like
a lot of registration.
I can tell you right now, PayPal is the best. Now there's like, I think, a 1% transfer. I know it sucks. But like at the end of the day, I could throw a credit card on there and it kind of does mix it up a little. So like, for example, yeah, I get charged with the credit card, but at least I get my points on it. And I'm not gonna go crazy on it, but like the 1% doesn't really hit me too hard. So it's a good one. And then you can schedule out the payments. So PayPal is probably my favorite one for the Philippines. And then they transfer the currency. So works pretty good. On top of it too, if you're doing a lot of systems, you're going to maybe have to learn about VPNs, virtual private networks. There's a free one called WindScribe. I can give everyone, it's called WindScribe. It's a free VPN, so your VA can use it, and it seems like they're in the United States. So that's overall how you train VAs, virtual assistants.